Good afternoon to you all, our dear viewers. Welcome back to this week's another episode of the Community Show. This week we're discussing the issue in northern Uganda about the Balalo and the issue of land that is going on there up country. Otherwise, tonight I'm joined by a panel of very interesting gentlemen from Gulu. I'm joined by a gentleman who mentored me when I was still at Laibi College, Mr. Andrew Ogweta Otto. Mr. Andrew Ogweta Otto is a man of many things, and he will go ahead and introduce himself. Other than Mr. Andrew Ogweta Otto, we're also joined by Mr. Andrew Erach, who they will have the chance to introduce themselves into detail. But for now, let us just over to you, Mr. Andrew Ogweta. Just quickly introduce yourself, say hello to the viewers, and just what your introductory remark as regards tonight's conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I would like to thank you all for making me part of this, and for also making the Acholi issues part of your deliberations. It is a long sung song, and I'm happy that through this platform, we can amplify this voice to the consumption of many who are eagerly waiting. My name is Ogweta Andrew. I am a city councillor in Gulu City. I am a lawyer by profession, and I am a spokesperson of the FDC party in Gulu City, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew. We're very happy to have you here. Otherwise, we also have another Andrew on the show who is called Mr. Andrew Erach. Quickly, Mr. Andrew Erach, let's just come in, just introduce yourself. Let the viewers get acquainted with whom they're going to speak with. You're most welcome, Mr. Erach. All right. As we wait for Andrew Erach to get that sorted, I'll just begin. I would like us to begin the conversation, Mr. Andrew, but as we get on to listening from Mr. Andrew Erach. There are viewers out there who possibly do not understand the issue that is going on in northern Uganda, particularly with the Balalo and the tenure system. So before we get into the discussion of the Balalo, among others, it's prudent that we understand the historical context of the land tenure system in Acholi and So, Mr. Ogweta, kindly give us a historical context to make us understand, or our viewers who are watching, to understand the conversation. All right, Mr. Andrew Ogweta, hang on. Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew Erach. Kindly just say hello, introduce yourself, and we shall get underway in the conversation.
Hello, members. I'm Andrew Erach, calling from Lira City. I have been in Acholi land for quite some time, doing some farming activities there as well, in Nuoya. And I'm a former parliamentary contestant for Kwania North constituency in a new district in Lango sub-region. That is briefly my intro. I could introduce myself a little more, but in the interest of time, I believe we can proceed. The rest of the things can be, discussed later. It's not a main issue. I'm an architect professionally, and then.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew Erach. We're looking forward to having an interesting conversation with you. Over to you, Mr. Andrew Ogweta. The question that I was asking was to give us a historical context or perspective to tonight's conversation to help our viewers who are watching or who are following this conversation for the first time to understand the land tenure system in Acholi, to then put context in the conversation where the Balalo come in. Over to you, Andrew Ogweta.
Thank you so much. When you ask me for the historical perspective, history as its name. The Acholi people did not choose to be Ugandans, but we all landed to be Ugandans because a map was drawn over us without our consent. When you go back to the 1885 Berlin Conference, where 5 European countries sat and drew a map over Africa without our consent, yet you look at the unification of Germany, the unification of Italy, the unification of so many other territories. It was about the consent of states. But for us, we found ourselves Ugandans without our consent. So it means we didn't choose to be Ugandans. So After 1885, in 1900, there was a Uganda agreement that was for the South. In 1901, Uganda was declared a British protectorate. After all those times, there were independence struggles through Governor Andrew Cohen and all those related governors that were there. And after independence, the first independence constitution gave land to the people. In 1971, all of a sudden, General Idi Amin Dada declared all land public land. Of course, there are very many scholars who say they agree with his declaration or they disagree with his declaration, but all land became public land. Then now in 1986, there was an instrument that General Museveni brought temporarily as they were preparing the 1995 constitution that gave land back to the people. Now, for a population that suffered in a brutal violence with acts off the limits, from 1986 up to 2007, when we had the cessation of hostilities agreement between the LRA and the government of Uganda, as we were leaving these camps, there were about 55 satellite camps. As people left these camps, those in Amuru who were supposed to go back to Apa found there were already negotiations. So the land crisis in Acholi, according to my argument, for purposes of time, because I cannot exhaust it all, is a continuation of the war. It is a continuation because war is not fought only through guns. War is fought in many ways, including making people landless. So the LRA genocide, as other scholars say, was concluded a few years back. The war is still on, only that it is being fought in a new way. And the new way the war is being fought is by making people landless. So you would start with the Apa question. The Karamoja question, where there are a lot of our brothers and sisters who are having a challenge on accessing their land around areas of Agago, around areas of Kupum, which borders the Karamoja terrain. It is all a land issue. The Balalo invasion, why on earth? Let me tell you, for Balalos to come in northern Uganda, they have to pass Luero, they have to pass Nakasongola, they have to pass Nakaseke, they have to pass Kamdini, they have all those areas. Imagine, the land is found in Acholi land, not even in Lango area, where Erach comes. So why? This is a continuation, a deliberate continuation of the war. And that is my very special argument that I would be able to contend with and aver in this debate. So let me stop there for now, and I give ears to other arguments that may be raised to that effect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew. That has been a very detailed historical context to tonight's conversation. You bring it in a way that we understand that the tenure system actually is one that is customary. But what then happens is the war that made people settle into IDP camps. On the war ending in around the year 2007, people go back to occupy their lands, but they find that most of the lands have been taken, which leaves us to answer the land question in tonight's conversation. But your strong argument in the conversation is it's a continuation of the war, which then informs my next question to Mr. Erach, Andrew, that do you think this is a continuation of the war? And two, how has the role of Balalo evolved in the region?
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Definitely.
I want to throw a little more light before I answer this particular question. I want to supplement on what my colleague Andrew Ogweta just stated. I would like to include the aspect of the civil war in Rwanda, which raised us a lot of problems in Uganda. In 1959, between 1959 to 1962, there was civil war between the Hutus and the Tutsi in Rwanda, which led to an influx of the Tutsis into Ugandan territories, basically western part of Uganda. And then that is the origin of the problems of the Balalos in northern region and any other part of the country. They did not have indigenous land. And the law that applies to Acholi land is the same law that applies to all lands in this particular country. However, on a regional basis, in Uganda, you have the Milo land. It is my land, but it is termed Milo land for, that is just a bit of dialect. But the origin I want to dwell on is that the Balalo came to Uganda, the Tutsis, some of them went back. Some of them got intermarried in Uganda here. I remember in 1965, President Obote stated that Ugandans should go to the camps and get very beautiful ladies from Rwanda. We married them and incorporated them in Uganda. And that is why we have the Western Ugandans with the mixture of both the Bahimas and the Kinyarwandas in that area. Now, in 1986, when the current government, the NRA government, took over power, some of the historicals grabbed the large chunks of land which used to house these people from Rwanda, the Balalos and what? So now they were pushed out of the country. They are not only in Acholi, some of them are in Ilango here, the Kokoro area, the home of Obote, others in Mbale and so many other places. So since land was grabbed by the locals in Western Uganda, it rendered these people homeless and landless. And that is why they moved to this other part of the country. Unfortunately, in Acholi land, just like in Lango and some part of the neighboring ethnic groups around the area, the IDPs, which was as a result of the Lord Resistance Army, pushed people away from the land, which I concur with my comrade Andrew. When they are pushed out of the land, the 20-year-old war that left some of them disconnected from their roots, the farming system, the sense of their heritage and all that thing was completely, they are taken to urban centers. Within 20 years, when they are being forced to go back, some of them had lost even the boundaries of their land. They didn't know where to go to. And that is where right now we are having there's large chunk in Acholi land where we have many guys doing construction there, major companies. We have Salim Saleh there. We have General Temawany. We have different other, dignitaries doing farming there. Because at the time when people were occupying those areas, the war pushed them to the urban centers. The people that remained cannot go and get the location of where they used to live. Actually, as I talk, like in Lira here, some kids left their homes at the age of 2. 20 years down the road, they are 22 years. You take them back, they literally don't know where they hail from. They cannot even locate where their homes were. So that is the origin of land wrangles that we are finding right now in Acholi land. Now, could you please remind me of the question you raised? Now I want to bring this into context.
Now, the other part is, how has the role of Balalo evolved in the region?
Yeah, the evolution of the Balalo in the region, as I said, when the historicals, the 27 is called, majority of whom who came from Western Uganda grabbed land. And that fact we know. Now, when they got large chunks of land, these people were pushed to other parts of the country. And now they are finding themselves settling in these key areas, which were vacated by people due to the war in northern region. They were pushed away. Now, these people, there are large chunks of land, thousands of acres, where you have no clear ownership. Because for customary land tenure system, you need to have the people. It is communal ownership. In the past, the origin was that the chiefs, like in Lango, I don't want to dwell on that. The chiefs would have their territories. Then in Acholi, there's a similar thing. They had the chiefs. Apart from the Rotachana, there were chiefs who owned territories.
At some point in time, I would want to interject on who should replace the Balalos now, since they are going. I would interject.
Maybe after.
Let my elder brother Gulu first proceed.
Yeah. So these has the disconnection between the ownership which was there, like you have in Buganda, the Milo land. The Milo land, there is the Kabaka and then the Batata. These Batata were given land in key places. They have it like that has been integrated into Milo land system. Now that was the kind of disorganized that our cultural leadership did not get that constitutionally adopted such that they can have that ownership. We have a loophole. There's a very big gap that our cultural leadership has not interacted with the government to ensure that the land law has been modified to give them full ownership and grip. We are still relying on the customary land tenure system, which the customary owners are now not very clear. The young people who are going there to claim the land, you cannot really tell the demarcation. Others can, but others cannot. So that is where we have a very, very big rooted problem there.
Thank you very much. It has been a
Then
very
there's
interesting
another question you raised apart from the what? Apart from this, there's another area you raised. What was it? Apart from the evolution of the Balalo's conflict, there's another issue you raised.
The other issue, I think you tackled it on the issue on the continuance of the war. Is this a continuation of the war? The argument that Andrew Ogweta brings to the conversation.
You know, there are very many things that are happening in this country. We can say it is a continuation of the war, yes, because I've been a scholar of governance. So when the war can be protracted in very many ways. For dominance, I don't want to take it so much into the class kind of arrangement. These are practical things that we are facing right now. Propaganda is part of governance, and sometimes divide and rule is part of governance. If you want to really dominate some people, there is an event where people, deprive them of their rights, make them poor, impoverish people, are desperate, and it's very easy to rule over them. And I think Northern region has gone through that where they were deprived of their heritage. I remember in the past, you'll find an Acholi man with his garden, his granary, his cattle, he would literally rely on the government, to educate his children, to provide food security for himself and his family, to connect with the neighboring, environment. But now, all this heritage has been, disconnected. Now we have people who used to do internal social security, like where there are wells that should be cleaned, where there are roads that should be slashed. Communities would come together and do that. That has been disconnected. Now the people rely 70–80% on government, which is a bit of a challenge I find right now, because everybody, Museveni has not done this for me. I know the people are. That is not what is sustainable in my own view.
All right. Thank you very much. That has been a very, very detailed and wonderful discussion. Andrew Ogweta, you had an issue you wanted to address as regards who has replaced the Balalo. But as you address that and maybe respond to Mr. Erach, I also have a question for you, which is, what are the current trends in land grabbing, actually? Andrew Ogweta.
Thank you very much. There is a presidential directive pending enforcement on the Balalo. You see, when you take 600 people out of land and you put a company, the company pays taxes to government of Uganda. But what happens in a situation where when you aid 600 people with some grants and some resources, so that 600 people are taxpayers, not only one company, which has replaced them? That is the trend. You look at Nwaya right now. People who were landowners in Nwaya are now watchmen for companies that they sold land to. Very painful. They sold land to in desperation. Because after the war, there was no any form of reparations that the government of Uganda gave to the people of Acholi. And yet under international law, there is a rule that there is responsibility to protect, and that lies on the state. It lies on the state. So you are a watchman in a land that once belonged to you, customarily. Customarily. I don't differ from Mr. Andrew Erach. Secondly, right now we have,
I think,
less children. Am I being heard?
Yeah, you're audible now. You can be heard.
Yes.
You can be heard.
So there's a new people. These are children who are given birth to while in captivity, under LRA captivity. They came back. Nobody can show them where they belong. So they belong to the streets. Now the Balalo are occupying unused land. In the year 2003, Professor Ogweta came out with a research that 78% of land in Acholi is uncultivated. 78%, which is likely to fall back to around 58% of land in Acholi, which is uncultivated. Now, where will we put the stateless children? The ones on the streets who were given birth to while in captivity. Nobody is their parents. They fetch their lunch, breakfast, and supper from the pockets, forcefully from the pockets of those who earn a little better from the city. Now, if this group of people are supported by government and given adequate land that belongs to them, then you would find that we would have made good use of land. So the land in Acholi is big enough for our need. It is big enough for our need, but not for our greed. Mark my words. The land in Acholi is big enough for our needs, but not for our greed. Now that the land has been turned for greed, it is going to be too small for all of us. It is going to be too small. So as the Balalos go back, let us think of how do we make good use of this land. If you support a population of over 1 million people to make good use of land, it means you've empowered 1 million taxpayers. Then the breadbasket of the country, the consolidated fund will swell. It will swell immediately. I beg to submit as I wait for other rejoinders. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. That has been a very interesting submission. I just want to get back to you, Mr. Erach. And my question now to you is on who are the main actors involved in land grabbing and what motivates them in Acholi?
Thank you so much. In Acholi, just like in the northern part of the region, the government is one of the institutions that is involved in that process, directly or indirectly. The reason is currently we have huge debts that the government intends to clear. And we have our fraudulent systems in the country that does not allow the government to tap from all the companies and businesses, and tax paying is really very, very poor in Uganda. Now, the government intends to levy taxes on land. One of the reasons why we have new mushrooming cities is to ensure that we urbanize the country in one way or the other. As we urbanize the country in one way or the other, that would be improving on tax paying. That is, property taxes should be, the planning system in the country should be improved, and then people can pay taxes on their properties. Areas which used to be trading centers where you didn't need to design and build and approve a building plan, now you have to, because it has been turned into a town council. Areas which were, district headquarters, others have been turned to municipalities, others are cities where we have to push the planning system such that people can pay more property tax. And the land in the villages, which were not being, there were all sorts of taxes, has to now give government taxes. And that is why the large chunks in Acholi land, which are not being utilized by the indigenous people, now are being given to investors who can pay these taxes where our local people cannot pay right now. The 20 years war, I beg to take you back to that particular point, has disconnected people from their work, the livelihood, the way they used to work in their gardens and cultivate land. Now we have people, not only in Acholi, but in the neighboring ethnic kind of settings. You find young men who should have been human resources working hard and getting a lot of money from farming activities. They are in trading centers playing mweso, playing cards. And really, literally, the government has to spend money on them to give them good medical care, to give them good roads, schools, and all this, but they do literally nothing because they have been disconnected from their source of living. And now, as we talk, even if I would say that the land is there, the lands which are not yet grabbed is there. You find a single landowner having about 800 acres of land. He can only cultivate 2 or even 1 acre out of the 800. So the government has seen that it is better to them to bring in investors, and the investors can pay such taxes, such that the government can have funds to run some of its activities. The capital development project, the loans, we have been talking about the Teba Express Highway. We have been talking about the other projects like Karuma Dams project and so many roads that are coming up right now that needs money. Some of them have been done on loans and the loans have not yet been serviced. So that is one thing that I want to dwell on. Secondly, we have our own individual people, the leadership we have in the ground from basically northern region, the naivety, the greed that my colleague Andrew Ogweta was just alluding to. We have people who are self-centered. They want resources for themselves, so they use the knowledge of the investment plan of the country to get free land and gain from it individually. I have a case in point in Lango sub-region where Maruzi Ranchos, some few individuals who are in leadership just gave out, it was a giveaway. They gave out large chunks of land, which is equivalent to like 2 or 3 sub-counties, given out at a very cheap rate because of the greedy interest that they want to satisfy their own, own self-whims. So in this case, I want to say our own people are our biggest problem. The government, of course, needs money. And that is why I think there's extreme urbanization right now. If you look at the law of Uganda, we have, I think, Article 242, which allows the government to regulate land use from time to time. I have always said is that the law of the land allows us to own land. They say land belongs to the people as amended in 1995 Constitution. But there is that aspect which is expanded in the what? In the Physical Planning Act, Article 242, which allows the government to regulate land use. It is in urban centers where the government will always give you, okay, when you're a landowner, you have the ownership right. But when you're in urban settings, you don't have the usage right. The usage right belongs to the government. And that is where we are having a problem right now. The government sees, is there a value of the land to be owned by Erach, who has 400, 500 acres of land and is contributing nothing. He can only show what God has planted there. He has not planted anything. So the government needs money right now. I can really state this clearly. So the contribution of land grabbing, the government has an interest. You have seen for ourselves what has happened to a window market in Kampala. It has been given to investors. The government comes up with the choreographed methods of getting that land from people who are paying peanuts to people who can pay large chunks of money to the government, and they get what? Real revenue, because the land is in a strategic position and we have locals indigenous people of the area. They were not paying enough money. The government took control. Right now, the area is partly in the hands of what? Investors who can pay what the government wants. I think that is what I can submit. I don't want to go into the other areas that are concerned with the land grabbing. But those two institutions are the key land grabbers in the country, because right now we have seen in the global context, people are moving towards what? De-dollarization. And in that aspect, you see how you have seen what the US government is doing to Uganda. They're trying to withdraw their support. So the government has to what? Come up with self-help initiatives to push and meet the national budget on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That has been a very detailed submission as regards to what as regards to how is land grabbing and actually the issue of the main actors involved and what motivates them. And you highlight that the key factor, the first person that is involved here is the government. The fact that there is extreme need for urbanization, but also the fact that there is extreme need to get money in the national basket, but also too, our own people, our own challenge. As in the words of Mr. Andrew, but I say that land in Acholi is big enough for our need and not for our greed. Which then makes me invite in Andrew. We have laws in place, and you are a lawyer, and we maybe first and foremost, first tell us the existing laws that are there. But if we have these existing laws, are they being enforced? If not, why? What's going wrong? My brother Andrew Erach just said we have very greedy leaders who are looking at fulfilling their selfish interest. What's not going right? Is our laws being shaken up by the people? Andrew.
Thank you so much. The laws are there. We have the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, Article 26. We have the Land Act. and then we have other sister laws. It is very easy to rule an ignorant population. And the fact that the laws are there, if you deliberately choose not to help the people understand the law so that they know their rights, that one aids ruling, not leading, because ruling is different from leading. So, in the presence of these laws, the catastrophe that we are faced with in today's debate does not only locate itself in northern Uganda, it goes everywhere else. That the champions of misrule find it easy to continue misrule in a population that they forced to be ignorant. So we have a group of people who are forced to be ignorant, not by choice, but by policies and by interest of those who are ignorant. Now, there is a new form of cell that is happening. You go to a member of parliament, you go to a mayor, you go to a district chairperson, and you tell them that I have a court case or I have a medical condition, and kindly get my land at the cheapest price of 4 million or 3 million, so that they bail you out because you're selling out of pressure. That is a new form of land grabbing. You watch these Acholi MPs. There are about 29 of them. You would find that citizens who have court cases, citizens who have medical conditions in an ailing way, citizens who come from Acholi who have a lot of troubles and are living in dilemmas would sell their land for purpose of solving their problems. But yet, if they were to sell it not in desperation, that land would even cost more than 50 million. So we do not have only land grabbers from the state, but we also have land grabbers from within Acholi who use positions of power in a very unfair way. When you go to homes of members of parliament, I don't want to mention names there, you would find a whole line of citizens waiting to talk to an MP just because power has gone with a lot of resources. Somebody can spend 29 million shillings to move around a constituency to champion somebody else's bid, which I think it is common knowledge to all of us. Somebody has amassed resources. There are MPs with over 50 land titles in Acholi land. They're there. We know them. There are some MPs who come from East Acholi, areas of Agago, Pade, Kitgum, and they have land in Noya. That land belonged to somebody from Noya one day. But this is sell out of desperation. So if we can handle the problem of sell out of desperation, because now you sell to solve a certain problem, you don't sell for the value of that land. And you know, whoever owns land owns the skies above and the minerals down, except for what belongs to government of Uganda. That's according to land law, which I think, moderator, you must be acquainted with. So the sale actually is out of desperation. I would also bring something for purposes of our viewers, that those who were owners of land in the satellite camps, and I'm trying to do a research study on that. I promise to publish that. Those who own land in those 53 satellite camps, people were encamped into your land, but government has not compensated them to date. We had camps like in Pabo camp, Pabo. I will give an example. In Pabo camp, my late dad, who worked for Uganda Human Rights Focus, they went and did a study there. You can imagine the barracks in Pabo camp was inside, in the middle of the camp. People were surrounding the barracks. So who protect? Were the civilians protecting the soldiers? You see. So you would find a whole camp which is brought by government orders on somebody's land, and we have a whole case file in our law firm where their claimants were saying we were not compensated, yet we hosted people. People dug their toilets there. People used somebody's land. You see. So in all this, there is sale out of desperation, and then we have people who have not been compensated for the land that they gave to government, even not the Balalo. For the Balalos, I've already said that land belongs to the Acholi. There's a presidential directive for that effect. So let us think broader into this issue. I beg to submit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. It saddens my heart when our own leaders are actually a new form of land grabbers, that they're using people's desperation, which is as a result of the mass poverty that is in our region, to their aid, because they have the power, they have the resources, and our people are impoverished. Erach, I want us to talk about conflict and resolution. The question to you is, how has the Balalo crisis contributed to conflicts in Acholi? Erach?
Thank you so much, moderator. This is a very, very critical moment. We live entirely in a country where we have conflicts with each neighborhood, right from the pre-colonial days to date. All the government that have served in this country were not serving the nation. The majority of them serve ethnic kind of attachment. And that is why currently, as we talk, we have conflicts. We are grown out of conflicts. We developed out of conflicts. We were educated with a lot of conflicts. So as we talk right now, the conflict in Acholi, as a result of the Balalo, is huge and is immense. And this, when I see the government trying to promote what we call patriotism, patriotism is not something that has to be induced in somebody by way of persuasion and all this kind of thing. Patriotism is a natural, voluntary kind of approach that we as Ugandan must be having it, voluntary. In Uganda, as we talk right now, between Acholi, you see when somebody is just brought into your land, assuming each and every one of us, have homes. Somebody is just brought into your land, that which is a breach of the constitutional, provision. Whoever just comes into your land without your permission, that is already criminal what? Trespass. And this criminal trespass has been what? made a public kind of institution and propaganda. And that is what has affected the Acholi. When you see your land, which used to belong to your grandfather or your father, which was supposed to be inherited by you or your grandchildren, now somebody is using it, rearing cattle. And the cattle that do not respect, your gardens. I have lived in Acholi, where there are areas for farming. These lands are strictly for farming. You don't find animals moving to such areas. But this has been what? Messed up by the Balalo's influx into Acholi land. If you don't go and chase them from your maize garden, from your soy garden, they throw the animals to go and graze in such places. And they have their godfathers that you cannot deal with them. Environmentally, in other areas like also, because these people lived, when they lived with their animals, they destroyed some of the trees, others are cutting what? The trees for charcoal. And deforestation has taken place hugely, not only in Acholi, but even in Langu, in a place called Chawente. These people took their animals and they have removed the environmental cover, the trees. The place is bare and barren. So the seasons have been messed up. Where people used to do 2 seasons, for farming, it is only 1 now, which is also kind of, with a lot of drought. So I am saying this to raise a concern that our people need to be educated deeply, not only just our local people, but even the leadership that we have in place. The problem that we are having is deeply beyond sometimes our influence. We can talk, we can shout like this forum, we can say whatever we want, more self-will for government to handle conflicts and institute a proper conflict resolution or reconciliation council like it happened in South Africa, where Desmond Tutu headed the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and people live as one country, as brothers. Andre Erach from here meets somebody from Western Uganda, from Eastern Uganda. We are brothers. We are connecting. We don't have this ethnic attachment that is a divide for us. We need to start living a life that we are all Ugandans. We believe anybody from any part of the country is a brother, is a sister. We take care of each other. But now, as we talk, the Equal Opportunity Commission is irrelevant, because you find one section of the country so much endowed, not endowed, I think, given privileges more than the other sides of the country. So that is where we are having a very, very big problem affecting our country, which meddles in any efforts in conflict resolution. We can try. We have had institutions, Amnesty International has come in trying to, go in for peace talks between Konya and the government of Uganda. We have had cultural leaders come together, Acholi and Lango and West Nile, because of the war which occurred in 1971, that has left many people gone. You remember just a couple of days ago, there was a reburial of what? Pierino Okoya, who was killed then by, I think, either Amin himself, because Okoya was rapidly getting accelerated appointment and all this and that. So eventually Okoya was, now all these has created conflicts. And these conflicts does not only stop with the land grabbing, which the Balalos has created. There is I think land between Acholi and either Madi or whatever, which has also caused a huge kind of conflict. So regional conflicts, one, need to be solved. And how we acquired this land. You see, Lango and Acholi have been nearly brothers. Lango speaks the Acholi language. The language that ethnically Lango should be speaking is the Kejongs and the Itesots. But the Langis married with the Acholis, and they formed the Luo section of the people in northern region, together with what? With the Lurs. Those are the staunch Luos. But I would say there is conflict between these people. And why should we carry on conflicts which is for something which happened about 50, 60 years ago? Why would a Lango man or an Acholi man have conflict with a Muganda for something which occurred 50, 70 years ago? We need to live on, we need to move on and start up a new chapter. The government should invest a lot of resource and institute a real truth and reconciliation council for Uganda. And then we can move together. We can appreciate the value of living in peace together. We cannot start taking ourselves back to the roots of where we got started. The real Bantus who came to Uganda are no longer the Bantus. People have mixed up. The real Luos who came, people in Acholi have intermarried with other tribes and other, races. We cannot just change that now, taking back to original Acholi or even Lango. We cannot now get the original Lango. The Langos we have right now are mixed up. So I would say the government should have a proper will to institute reconciliation, real truth and reconciliation, because you cannot reconcile these cheap forgiveness won't exist. We need to know the truth of what happened in the past. The current leadership we have cultural leadership. It's not just for prestige. We need to come together and get proper reconciliation that our young generations will appreciate. And that is when we shall push some of these conflicts behind the carpet and life goes on.
Thank you. We definitely, as a country, need truth telling. We need to reconcile, and I 100% agree with you. Mr. Andrew Ogweta, our conversation is moving on quite smoothly and nice, and I'm enjoying the fact that I'm learning quite a lot, but we're also ushering a conversation that is of national importance to the country, but also to the people of Acholi, which makes me ask a question from the perspective of the community. What do the local communities in Acholi and maybe some parts of now think about the Balalo crisis and land grabbing? How are they affected, and what solutions maybe do we propose? Andrew?
Thank you so much. The Balalo people are presumed to be very violent people by the community. There is an assumption that they also own weapons and they are protected by the state. I'm not being partisan, but I'm trying to be honest here. In a place called in Gulu district, there's a road after you leave Patiko Balaalo area where some citizens who are residents actually found some cows grazing on their garden, and they impounded and were tied those cows so that the owners come and get it. And the owners came with guns. This is public information. It was publicized by a number of media houses. So that story was able to maraud the entire region, where people now think that the Balalo people own guns and the Acholi people have arrows. So that dimension of thought already brings an element of conflict, which I am not persuading, but I am revealing. In addition to that, there are people of Acholi also who, out of desperation, gave their land, and some of them acquired these lands and have agreements to that. I have a feeling that if you give Acholi 50 years, I don't know how much land we shall be left with. Maybe as such. But the key question that the people of the community ask is that why are the Balalo not in Teso, not in Kigezi, not in Papiso, they are not in West Nile, but why have they chosen actually land? And this has given a lot of rise to a number of pressure groups and registered pressure groups. So a lot of unregistered pressure groups have risen to begin voicing their Acholi question in regards to the Balalo. Right now on my phone, I am a member of 44 WhatsApp groups, and these are pressure groups, and they are all trying to voice. You have a group called RP, you have a group called Our Trees Who Need Answers, which is controlled by those of Asawo. You have a group of Acholi Agenda, you have a group of Luo, there are just so many. And these are groups of elites, those who can type a message on WhatsApp, those who can type a message on Facebook. So the manifestation that these groups have risen is the sign that there's already a voice that is crying. Meanwhile, on the other side, from the community perspective, there are actually, I'm sorry to use this word because I pray it is expanded from the English dictionary, because we have the illiterate who do something good. That word is not good for people. But there are people who never went to school. And these are the vulnerable, those who come out of desperation. There is a question that they ask that why are you rising now? Why didn't you tell us before? So there are a lot of controversy. I'm very honest here from a community perspective as a leader of the crowd. There are these controversies that we have the land and then there's a blame game on side. There's a group that is coming, there's a group that is coming that probably did them before. So handling those contradictions. And then there's the silence, which is the cultural institution. Why are they now? Why is the world beginning to work today? Yet he should have worked probably some years back. So there are those contradictions. And then now the role of the media also. We have a new group of journalists, not those who are trained to study journalism, but those who are trained to facilitate propaganda. And now you would find them posting lot of information. There's a new form of journalism which is creating contradicting scenarios and situations. Somebody wakes up all of a sudden, does a voice recording, and says, I'm a journalist, I'm a media person, never studied journalism. So I'm trying to be honest on the revelation of ground right now, where the pressure is coming from, who is consuming which pressures, and who is suffocating which pressures. I think I've tried to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrew. That has been a very good, detailed community perspective to what is happening in Acholi, and it's sad. It's very sad, and I think we need to continue having these conversations, but also have it down in the community level to have people engaged, to have people involved. But also, we as lawyers who know these issues of land law, we need to educate our community on issues that are relating to their land rights. Mr. Andrew Erach, environmental impact. We cannot have this conversation and fail to talk about environmental impact. In this month, I think up to until November, we shall be celebrating. All these are months of the Sustainable Development Goals, and you know that grazing in a way that is not sustainable has a huge environmental impact. So my question to you is, how does the cattle herding by Balalo in Acholi impact the environment of our land?
The cattle herding in Acholi usually came at a time when I think the land in Acholi had regained its original form. The land actually in Acholi was basically virgin land, I would say so. I did some farming there. The ecosystem was in its original state. The environmental cover was very good, and that is why people are doing farming there, because the green cover, the vegetations are really very, very good. That allows for proper agricultural production. As we talk right now, there is so much, forest deforestation that has taken place. In what? In getting huge chunks of land for farming, for mechanized farming. I envisage in the near future a change of the weather which would render all these systems again not as effective as it should have been. Because as we talk right now, people are doing a lot of ground clearance of trees which should have been used as green cover to clear the gardens for mechanized farming. They don't need major trees. So a lot is being done in deforestation, and very little being done to what? To plant more trees to replace the used up land for agriculture. Additionally, we have the population explosion, which requires regular, fuel for cooking, for all this and that, and people are using also some of the trees to make charcoal for a livelihood. All in all, you'd hardly get a chuck of charcoal right now. Why? Because trees have been depleted, including what should have been used as what? As consumable, like fruit trees, mangoes, they are being cut for charcoal. So at the end of the day, I envisage in 5-10 years' time, a very, very big problem that would affect us, and people will, do away with their land more. As my comrade Andrew Ogweta just stated, people are fighting for the resources. Country, number of people. Yes, please. Pardon?
That is why I say this is the combination of the war. When you put people into camps, when they come back and they become harmless, and then when you begin to their environment.
Yes, I can hear you.
I bet you.
That is true. That is true. So actually, as we talk right now, the degradation is going in, leaps and bounds. Is big, the magnitude. We are just seeing it right now. Without the mechanized system of agriculture in such places, the population is exploding. You go to Anaka, you go to these places, the numbers of people are increasing. With the government projects like new roads coming up, other places are being pushed into swamps again, because the roads which are there now, new roads have been refurbished, and then fewer culverts are in place. The lands which are nearer to swamp area has been increased into swamps and all. They are all reducing the land cover, which the people needed to use. Right now, the people who are doing farming in Acholi land, some of whom have gone into the swampy areas, which the government is stating that should be what? Should be preserved to curb down. As you heard from Andrew, we have the development agenda, the international development. We call it what? Sustainable development. Sustainable development came up with those provisions where one key aspect was on the environment. As we talk, we used to have animals which were meant for tourism, not in the game reserves, but in some few, bushes around homes. Now you don't get such bushes. The gorillas that used to have, they are not there. People have destroyed the cover. And there, it's a bit of a problem. It is a looming problem. The tourism that we used to, believe in so much is also being depleted. The land which should have been used to take care of the game reserves, and they're now being depleted. Forest covers. Local leaders have destroyed all they go and get a permission from government, they come and destroy. Land are being used. Actually, the law in Uganda works like a cobweb. It can only deal with the mosquitoes and flies, but when like these hornets come through, they just peruse through. We have been chasing people. You had a couple about a year ago. Somebody's rice was slashed down to the ground by an RDC in Otuke. Yet we have large chunks of garden being utilized by what? Government officials. In swamps for cultivation of rice. In swamps in cities for putting fuel stations, for putting housing and all this kind of thing. They are not, the law don't act on them. And some of them are government officials. So it is a pity. The law should be cutting across if you want to respect some of these things. So I want to state that the environment is the biggest problem right now. There's no self-will. The law only affects the peasant and the poor people. But the big shot in government just depletes swamps at their will, and nothing happens. So that is why I really see that there's a very, very big problem. It needs everybody to take up a self-initiative of doing good other than being forced to do good. Because as we talk, we have failed to fight corruption. And that is another form of corruption. If somebody cannot be self-led, somebody goes and swindles government resources and knows if I'm not arrested, then swindling of government resources becomes good. If I'm utilizing the swamp because I'm a minister, I'm maybe an army general, if my state allows me to commit these crimes, I think that is where we are getting it wrong in this country. We should collectively join hands in protecting our national treasure, the environment, the weather, which allows us to do more production, because we are enjoying what the past leaders protected. This very, very, very good virgin territory, virgin land, which allows for good production in agriculture. But if we excessively deplete the environment, trust me, in a matter of years, we shall be producing either half or quarter of what we are producing now, because we have not protected the environment. I beg to submit.
Thank you very much. This is a very interesting and wonderful discussion. Personally, I feel like it shouldn't end, but we have reached towards the top of the hour of our conversation. So I'd first get back to Andrew Ogweta to quickly give us his concluding remarks plus recommendations on what we the people must do, what the government must do, what the cultural leaders must do, and what all of us collectively ought to do to see that we solve the crisis of Balalo, but also the land grabbing in Acholi. Then I'll come back to you, Mr. Andrew Erach, and wrap up the conversation. Andrew Ogweta, you must welcome.
I hope I'm heard.
Yes, you are audible.
Before I give my recommendation, I will not take too much time to do. I want to say Northern Uganda, Acholi and Lango sub-region is the most researched region in the world. When you go to Google and you type Northern Uganda, you can see all the search results. You can see all those who try to get information from Northern Uganda. Some people flew on planes to come and get the information on that. And they came and interviewed women, men, youth, the elderly in both Acholi and Langos and River. And they also got research recommendations from northern Uganda, which to date they have not seen. So there is a research fatigue. There's a research fatigue on the part of respondents who come from northern Uganda. Because now, when you go with a paper and a questionnaire to get information from people majorly about land, you now have to pay them to tell you false results. And unfortunately, people have graduated with false results about northern Uganda in terms of land. My recommendation to the people of Acholi is that there is no option than working hard. To the landlord, there is no option than working hard because no one else is working hard for us. We have to work hard. And then number three, to we politicians, MPs, councillors of different districts, different municipalities, different sub-counties, is that we must be sincere to the people. You see, in Gulu City right now, I sit in a council of 17 people, and we are the ones who have the authority of determining who the city land board chairperson should be together with the members. Kivu has the district land board. Pade has the district land board. Erach has the district land board and the city land board as well. Agago has the city land board. Amuro has the district land board. Noya has the district land board. Omoro has the district land board. Gulu district has the district land board. Now, if we get ethical people with proven integrity to compose of these boards, because they would be people who decide over public land. So my recommendation regarding all these matters brought in this afternoon's discussion is that let us get people who are right in the right positions. And this goes to mayors, this goes to district chairpersons and the district executive committees that sit, that you are there for the people and by the people. So I beg to submit those are the small recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Those are very interesting recommendations. Let us conclude with Mr. Erach. Your recommendations and concluding remarks.
Thank you so much. I want to concur with my colleague Andrew, but to make some kind of additional statements. One, I stated that the cities were given. Some of these cities need to work on certain areas. I think the city are not well equipped. Andrew stated that we need to put in place the City Service Commission. This should be an amended constitution. The parliament should come clear on this aspect. As we talk in Gulu City, I don't think Gulu City's land board is functional. The law of Uganda only gives powers to the area land committee, which submits to the district land board, which submits to Uganda Land Commission. We don't have anything in the constitution of Uganda in respect to the city land board. This has left a vacuum of land leasing processes and protection within the cities that have been newly established. A case in point, you have land, public land in Lira, which has caused huge wrangle in Lira City. I don't think Gulu City is immune to that. I don't think the new cities that have been established are immune. These were originally district land belonging to the district as granted by the constitution. So now this land have been left hanging. So people are playing around with it because there are no legal protection mechanisms to keep this land safe for the best use of the government and even the citizens. Now, as we talk, we need an expedited move by Parliament and the government of Uganda to establish a working mechanism, either reinstate the district land board to continue carrying its operation within the cities, or have Parliament enact a law for the establishment of the city land board, because it is non-existent. Cities are putting these positions in place, but we don't have the references, and their duties and responsibilities are not prescribed by the law, so they are non-existent. I think that is one critical area that would go ahead in protecting land within the newly established cities. Two, we have people that need to be empowered. Both our leaders and the local people currently, I would say, they are the same. People are going for political positions, for leadership, just to enrich themselves. Because I don't know whether we really have delegates or representatives. Because if we have representatives in the position of local council leadership, in the positions of parliamentary leadership, parliamentary representatives, we should listen to the people. But whom are the people we are going to listen to? These are people who don't know the value of their land. As Andrew just stated, somebody is ready to relinquish a land worth 50 million at 2 million because he needs waraji. He wants to buy uniform for his son to go to a primary school. He is going to relinquish land worth 50 million at 2 million. And he goes and brings off about 1 million. And he takes home 200,000. And then the entire home is just, within 2 weeks, the 2 million is gone. And he has already relinquished land valued at 50 million. So I am saying this, we need to empower our people. Our people actually have no direction. They don't know where they're going to, and we are trying to speak for them. They can even want to kill you because you are obstructing them from getting 2 million out of a 50 million land. Because when you try to talk to them, inform them that the value of that land is huge, they want to kill you. They want the 2 million as opposed to what? The 50 million that they should, which shows that if they cultivated the land, they could even get over 100 million. That is the problem we have with our people right now, the mindset. We used to have civic education, both in school and out of school. The political parties would perform these functions very well. Now the political parties, I understand the president said that by 2020, there would be no political party. As we talk right now, I don't see any political party doing civic education for the people of Uganda. Currently, NRM is non-existent. The political parties are just rabble-rousers. Because now when you go to other parties, they're competing with the NRM, but they're still promoting the same thing. Everybody wants a chance. I think we need to restructure our mindset and know that we have a role to play. Civic education needs to be expedited, needs to be expanded, and people know their values. Actually, my own recommendation is that we should have introduced, in the abridged curriculum in schools, we should have introduced an elementary law, and we understand how best we can protect our land, protect our people, know our rights, know all this and that. Law and elementary law about just, I wonder how we would go and teach issues to do with the Kinto, European, and we are talking about history of Europe, other than talking about our rights prescribed in the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. When somebody knows the right, knows, we would be protecting our people from becoming criminals in this country. I think in the abridged curriculum, we should try to involve this, because what we want to do, what we want our people to be, we should deliberately inculcate it in our people. So if we don't do civic education, we are having a challenge, and a huge, huge challenge, because the cultural institution is non-existent. They are just pursuing, like in Lango here, recently, the cultural leaders came up to establish a company that gives them authority to lease, sell, do what land in Lango, without having a mini referendum with the cultural leadership, just to fulfill their petulant interest, which is a very, very big problem. That is the greedy leadership that we have in the country right now. And somebody is calling himself paramount, and they're doing one thing, that because now it is a breach of the constitutional provision. How would you want to have power as a cultural leader over the land which belongs to those particular people? Now you, as a leader, you want to have powers over it, and do what with it? Because I stated also clearly that the cultural leadership with a goodwill needs the law of the land enacted to protect the people and their properties, because that is also one state responsibility to protect people and their properties. Basically, land. God created land before creating what? The other things in the universe, including people. Adam was created when there was already land. So land is a critical factor of production, which must be protected properly well. And if the government does not have a self-will in doing that, I think the mindset should change. I'm also, I hope this reaches our president. I hope this message reaches our president. Perhaps he served as Moses, taking people from Egypt to where he is now. I wish he could change his mindset and the mindset of the people in governance to be more people-oriented rather than thinking about personal gains. People have amassed resources, the oil in Uganda, the whatsoever, lots of money. Where is this money taking us? We just go back in a coffin. And in that coffin, you don't carry your sons and daughters, you don't carry your monies which you have amassed in billions and trillions when Ugandans are there suffering in the dungeons. Let us release this money to boost our economy. Let us release this money to impact on the lives of the innocent, poor people in this country. Power is already in their hands, in your hands, Mr. President. Let the people come together, live in harmony, and impact on the people who are really suffering. They are crying, they are weeping. These are people who vote for you with one heart. I wish this message reaches our president. And then he takes a U-turn, because if he doesn't show his will in fighting corruption, if he doesn't show his will in curbing all these vices, the country will continue going in ruins. And if he does institute this commission of reconciliation, Ugandans will be very happy. No one will remember how Rwandans came to Uganda. No one will remember how the Luos and the Bantus came here and fought all this and that. No one will remember that. People will remember the harmony that prevails in this country. I'm happy that he came up with a law that entrenches the position of people owning land. Let us have that land for the best interest of our local people. I want to thank you so much for the audience. I want to thank our moderator for taking us through this discussion. I hope it finds the best place in the hearts of our leadership to make this country look better for the next generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a very powerful discussion this afternoon, and I must say that you've been very wonderful panelists, and it's been great listening in to all brilliant minds from you, Mr. Andrew Erach and Mr. Andrew Ogweta Otto. From me to all of you, I'm very happy, thrilled, humbled to have had the privilege and opportunity to host you. Otherwise, this conversation has been brought to you by Civic Space TV and the Center for Constitutional Governance. Tonight, we've been discussing the crisis of the Balalo and the land grabbing in Acholi. I've been joined by Mr. Andrew Ogweta Otto and Mr. Andrew Erach, who have put justice to this conversation. Otherwise, see you again next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.